So in the first video we created this diagram, and now we're going to turn it into an actual physical database. This process of turning a diagram into a physical database is called forward engineering. When you have the model on your screen like this, you can click on the model item up here, on the database item, and select forward engineer. Now what this does is open up a wizard that's going to walk us through a series of steps. And I generally do this a little bit differently than the automated process, and I'll show you. I accept all the defaults here. It's just saying where are you going to put this, the database that's in my local instance as normal. Then next. Now I'm going to override some of the defaults here. I'm going to say drop objects. Let's see, drop objects, create schema default, omit schema qualifier. That just simplifies the SQL a little bit. Generate use statements, it makes it better, and add show warnings. So I've checked every box in this bottom section here. Click on next, and it's basically saying, well, what do you want to create? I'm going to create my two tables, two objects, from my database. That's what I want to do, so I accept that default. Then next, and it actually shows me the SQL here that will be used to create the database. Now, if I click on next at this point, it'll actually execute the SQL and create the database. But what I want to do is capture this file. So I'm going to save the file out onto my hard drive, and I'm going to name it, this is going to be a SQL file. I'm going to create it employee department create, and it will be a .SQL file when I'm done, so I click on save. Now, I don't want it to run right now, so I'm just going to cancel out of the wizard. This is where I sort of short circuit the normal process and do it in my own way. Now, I'm going to open up my local instance, which is up here on my screen, and I'm back in the familiar view that we've had with SQL Server, and now I'm going to open up that file as a query in my database, and here it is. Just going to open up the file. Here's the SQL file. Now, I will show you some of these, what some of these statements do here shortly, but right now what I want to do is actually run this thing and create the database. So I click on the lightning bolt up here to run it. I got nothing but green down here in the bottom, so this worked. That's cool. And if I come over here and refresh the schema, here are my tables. The department table with its columns and the employee table with its columns. So that worked exactly the way I wanted it to. And let's go take a look at this SQL a little bit. Let me get this out of the way so I can show more of the screen. Okay. Don't worry about these statements here. They just prep the environment for creating a database. This statement says if the database already exists, then drop it, delete it. This is a very important statement because what it does is it allows you to run the script again and again and again. And if the database is already there, it'll delete it, and then you can quickly recreate it. That'll be important when you get to the project because you'll probably create your SQL and then maybe go in and make some tweaks to it afterward. So then we get a use statement here, and now we have the create table statement that creates the department table. And here are the two columns that or fields that we defined. The ID field, int, it's an integer, not null, auto increment. There's a comment field you can put in here to document if you want. Here's the name field, varchar 45, not null, can't be empty. This clause here specifies that the primary key is the ID field, and this clause here says that the values must be unique in the ID field. Now, here's the employee table. If it exists, we drop it first. Then we create the table. Here's the ID field, first name, last name, hire date, which is a data type, the department ID, which is a foreign key. When we created that department ID field, by dragging and dropping the line on the screen, it set it up with a constraint that says that there's a foreign key. Department ID references the department table ID column. And basically that's it for our script. Now, I can come in and add other fields here by hand if I wish. So just for example, and I'm making something up out of thin air, I can add a priority field that's an int, not null, comma. Now, I've just added a priority column, which would be the priority of the department. I have no idea what that means, but it doesn't matter. Because I've got drop schema up here and drop table, I can run this script right now. Now, excuse me, in our department column right now, we just had ID and name, but I'm about to add the priority column. Let's run the script. So it wipes out the schema over here. I have to click refresh to see it again. And now in my department table, I will have a priority column that was added to it. So you can modify this SQL by hand if you want, and you may choose to do that in your project if you have changes to make.